Good morning. Welcome to the latest In Conversation, sponsored by Metrojet of Hong Kong. I'm Matt Driskill, editor of Asian Aviation Magazine and AsianAviation.com. Today we're speaking with Ida Adora Ismail, the CEO of Systematic Aviation Services in Malaysia. Ida, welcome to In Conversation. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me. It's definitely a privilege.
Tell us a little bit about SAS. I was doing some background reading, the material that you sent. Your father started the company, I think, back in the 90s. Started pretty small operation, 5 people, but you seem to have blossomed and grown a bit since then. And you're not just an MRO company anymore, right?
Yep, that's true. That is right. My late father started the company in 1992. We definitely did start small. We don't see ourselves very big, but we are of a team of 97 at the moment. SAS is not only an MRO, we're also an approved training organization. We're also an AOC operator, so we do operate AOC, we do helicopter services and also fixed wing services, and we do aircraft management and also buy and selling of spares.
Okay. Give us an idea about how the company has coped with the pandemic. There's been travel restrictions, there's been quarantines. I should know this offhand, but Malaysia seems to go back and forth between lockdowns and flights.
That's right.
Within the country are okay, but now I'm not even sure if that's going on. And it's hard for, especially in MRO, it's hard for crews to move planes because of the various quarantine requirements. Give us an idea of what the situation is in Malaysia right now and how has that impacted the business?
Well, it definitely, aviation in Malaysia and I think around the world is definitely, one way or another impacted by COVID-19. We did not predict COVID-19 to be this long. I think no one expected it to be this long. But on our SAS's standpoint is that we're quite well diversified in the things that we do. So there are things that have slowed down, definitely, that I would say. Maintenance, we do quite a lot of maintenance for Indonesia, for Cambodia, and that has had its own hurdles trying to get the aircrafts in. In the last 1 year, we've had situations that we have to deal with because of the inconsistent of how things are. Like you mentioned before, there were times that they would allow international people to come in for business and then they would stop it based on the numbers of COVID. Safety element plays an important role. So I think it's sort of a day-to-day basis thing that we try to mitigate every day. I would say we still have not found the solution yet, but it has been a lot easier. Like, it's been 1 year and it's a little bit more flexible. But that being said, also I think a lot of people have slowed down in the aviation industry, so it's not as, especially for MRO, it's not as upscale as how it was, before COVID-19.
In terms of MRO, are you handling narrow body planes or are you working on smaller aircraft?
We do a whole lot of general aviation aircraft, so mainly aircrafts below 5,700 kilos. So we work more on the smaller, lighter aircrafts.
Okay. And do you see clients shifting focus on MRO, for example, with those? Even other smaller aircraft, they still have to go through major checks every once in a while.
That's right.
Have people been putting that off, or have they been accelerating those checks?
Well, I would say it's a mixture of both, because there are certain clients, especially those in more bigger organizations, that some of them would have to scale down in terms of operations. So we've had a lot of clients that delay maintenance on their aircraft. However, on the other end, we also have clients that during the pandemic, they actively buy aircraft. As you know, the second-hand aircraft market is actually booming quite well, so it is a buyer's market at the moment. So we have had quite a number of aircrafts being purchased in the recent 1 year. So those set of clients seem to actively use their aircraft, and that maintenance has been going through quite well and on time. But we do also have a set of clients that have reduced the load of operation, so because of that, reduced maintenance.
Tell me about the pre-owned market. What you just said. Are there particular models or classes that are super popular right now? And what's flying off the shelf?
At this moment in time, a lot of helicopters, in particular, has been the go-to. A lot of our clients are selling their older helicopters and actually buying younger ones, because I think there are a lot of helicopters in the market that are recently purchased, but because of the pandemic, that the owners have decided to sell. So you actually get quite an attractive price for quite brand new and low hour aircraft. So a lot of our clients are replacing their fleet with those.
Would this be like for offshore oil and gas, or?
No, it's actually they've actually purchased it more for private use. Yeah, so again, like I said, there are people that are having it hard during the pandemic, and they're wanting to sell the aircraft because they've had to scale down. But we also have another pool of people that is using this current moment in time to take advantage of cheaper aircraft in the market to replace their older ones.
Okay, interesting. And I'm guessing because you work with the sort of the smaller aircraft, you don't really deal with the storage problem or planes being put in storage, or do you catch some of that work yourself?
Not in a large scale. We've had a few aircrafts that have been put in storage, but not on a large scale like all the other bigger aircrafts in the commercial airlines.
Okay. SAS, you mentioned earlier that it's basically a one-stop shop or one-stop aviation center. Tell us a little bit about that. If I'm living in Malaysia, I want to buy a helicopter, I can come to you and do all of that. I mean, do you handle everything except me signing the check?
Yes, we do. So usually we get clients come in and, they don't have any idea of what they want to purchase, and they will come to us and we will consult them based on the kind of needs that they need the aircrafts for. And then we would actually go out and source for the aircraft for them and do the purchasing. And pretty much, yes, you do at the end of the day just sign the papers. And then on top of that, once the aircraft is delivered, we then continue with the managing of the aircraft and also the maintenance of the aircraft.
How long from me coming in and saying I want to buy a new aircraft or a used aircraft because I heard there's great deals, I need to fly my executive team from point A to point B, different island or whatever. Is that a 6-month process? Is that a 3-month process? Does it just depend?
It depends on the aircraft that you're buying. If it's a second-hand aircraft that is already in the market, it's always easier to source. But then, of course, during COVID, traveling becomes a restriction, so we've got to do a lot of it over video conference. However, what we try to do for our clients is that while waiting for their aircrafts to arrive, that they are able to use our aircrafts, because SAS itself, we own a number of helicopters and planes, so the clients can then use that as a transition until their aircrafts actually arrive here.
And again, is there, in terms of what you're seeing people looking for in the market, what are they looking for? Is it King Airs? Is it smaller than that, bigger than that?
At this moment in time, I would say the helicopter side is a bit more, higher demand than fixed wing, because, helicopter operation is a lot more flexible. You're able to fly, sort of land anywhere here, with permission, land anywhere here in Malaysia. So I think people tend to find the helicopters a bit more usable. So it's been the single engine helicopter has been definitely the high demand at this moment in time.
Let me follow up on that, since we're talking about helicopters. One of my, technically a competitor, but he's a friend of mine also. He wrote a really interesting story about emergency medical operations and things like that. Is that market, does that exist in Malaysia? Is it a big market? How is that working?
It is not as big of a market because, Malaysia is quite a small island in itself. Peninsula and also Borneo isn't quite big. And Malaysia also has their police, they've got their fire rescue, they've got maritime that already have those services available. So I would say EMS is not something as big as it is in Europe, operational wise, but there are demands, just not as large.
Okay. Ida, we need to take a quick break here to hear from our sponsor, Metrojet of Hong Kong. Got to pay the bills just like everybody else. We'll be right back after this.
We're going to have the crown jewels of Asia, and I promise you we're going to have the nicest and busiest business aviation hangar in the region.
And we're back. We're talking to Ida Adora Ismail, CEO of Systematic Aviation Services in Malaysia. Ida, quick question. When I lived in Hong Kong, everyone would talk about Singapore competing against Hong Kong and vice versa. Right now I'm in Singapore. I've been here covering this industry for the last 5-6 years. Singapore has really been promoting aviation services, MRO, engines. We've got Rolls-Royce here. Among others, Pratt & Whitney's got a big shop here. But Malaysia has something that Singapore doesn't have in that space. So we've seen a lot of MRO growing in Malaysia. What is, and again, I don't want to focus just on MRO, but that was sort of where you started, and I understand there's other parts to your business. Where does it stand? Give us an idea of where we stand in terms of Singapore competing with Malaysia, and also the Malaysian government's ideas around aviation. I mean, is this a key industry that the government's supporting?
Well, Malaysia and Singapore. Singapore has definitely got its MRO business, its aviation business, a lot. I would say probably a lot faster moving forward than Malaysia did. I think Malaysia itself at this moment in time is slowly growing there. The aviation industry at this moment in time is definitely affected because of COVID, but I would say that the government is doing their best to try to change that. So there are a lot of incentives that have been given by the government to help. That being said, also I think a lot of businesses have shifted from Singapore to Malaysia, mainly also because of the exchange rate and also the manpower costing. So costing wise, it is a lot cheaper to be based in Malaysia. In terms of areas of operation, Malaysia is a lot bigger. So I think a lot of the clients that we do servicing also, they've chosen to make Malaysia their maintenance base because, and SAS here for maintenance, because of one, it's cheaper. Number two, it's a lot easier to carry out maintenance. Test flights are, we've got a very large area to do a lot of test flights and flights. So I think the shift in that, culture-wise also, I think within the region, Malaysia is a lot maybe similar. Like for example, like SAS, we maintain a lot of aircraft from Indonesia. So culture-wise also, I think it's a lot similar to Indonesia and Malaysia, so that I think the clients find comfort here.
And tell me about the government. You mentioned some incentives, things like that. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What's the government doing? I mean, because Singapore is, their aviation is considered a key industry here, and the government's been plowing money into it, whether it's Seletar, the redevelopment out there, whether it's Changi, whether it's supporting the airlines during COVID. I mean, do you see that happening in Malaysia as well?
Yep. Well, the governments are currently in plans for a lot of incentives for the aviation industry in Malaysia, but I think they also help by reducing a lot of the costs that are implied. So then, people aren't having to pay so much at this moment in time. So I think that in a way helps. In terms of businesses wise, also I think the government is quite supportive in anything that comes in. So if the aviation industry has growth, that they do help us in that sense.
And as I mentioned earlier, we've seen, Airbus has got a big operation in Malaysia. Dassault's got a big operation there. There seems to be some consolidation in that space. Are you trying to grow the business and sell out to someone, or you want to grow organically and stick around for a while?
Well, we've been around for 25 years, so I think we're still going to continue growing in that sense. We do have OEMs around us, but they've been quite supportive during this moment in time. We found ways how to actually work together, and that has also been quite a blessing post-COVID. I think a lot of the times prior to COVID, it was always the competition was different. Everyone was really trying to compete against one another. But I think at this moment in time, due to COVID, that everyone sort of, they want a piece of the cake. So everyone's trying to work hard together. And I think that comes with a blessing because a lot of ideas then come in how to redevelop this industry moving forward.
Well, it's interesting when you talk about cooperation and things like that. I had a conversation with someone. It was out at Celatar. We were talking about business aviation. And he said, yeah, we compete, but at the end of the day, if somebody needs a special wrench over at their shop that we've got, and it's going to take them a week to get it,
Yeah.
but we can give it to them the same day, then we'll help them out because,
Yeah.
everybody, a rising tide lifts all boats, and
That's right.
and we help them out a lot. And that's interesting to me in aviation. You do compete, but there also seems to be a lot of cooperation as well.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I've sat down with a lot of different companies, and I think we've sort of come to a settlement that, hey, look, currently with COVID-19, it is a world pandemic. We don't know how things are moving forward, but it's about survival moving forward. So let's sit down and work together. Competition has to be healthy in this moment in time, for everyone to be there at the finish line at the end of the day.
We're coming to the end of the interview very quickly, but take your time with this one, Ida. It's been as we've talked about. Everybody in aviation knows it's 2020 was a bad year. Unprecedented, the worst in history. Pick your adjective that you want. What was the worst part for you in SAS?
Well, for me, 2020 would have been a tough year. It definitely was for us here at SAS. I lost my late father in January of 2020, so the role that was given to me came in quite quickly. And then it was 2 months down the road from when I had taken on the business that the world then went into a world pandemic. So I don't hear many CEOs actually having to run management at the same time go through a world pandemic. So a lot of the sorry.
That's all right.
A lot of our problem solving was, it was a lot of effort in it, but I think the teamwork was what kept us going. And in a way, COVID-19 was a blessing for us in 2020 because I think with the new management in, the company needed a lot of cleanup. We needed to sit down and actually plan what we needed to do. So I think COVID-19 allowed us to do that. So, we weren't able to meet clients as much, but we were able to actually use that time to develop new products, to grow, so I think that would have been, that was in itself a challenge. We were not able to travel overseas to meet the clients that we usually do. Clients weren't able to come in as easily as they would usually do. So, focusing and trying to shift where our business model. So in January, when we made our business model, by February, by March, by June, July, it changed. It just kept changing, So it it consisted a lot of sleepless nights trying to figure out what to do next.
I'm sure. So was it a lot of Zoom meetings and online calls, or was it mainly telephone?
Definitely a lot of calls, a lot of Zoom meetings, and yeah, countless times of that. It also involved a lot of people here in management to actually sit down and figure out, hey, what can we do next? So, but one thing for sure is that we did know that, hey, look, certain things would slow down. So we have to be prepared for that. But then other things, managed to kick off. Like, for example, for SAS, training kicked off really well. Our AOC operation, helicopter services and charter has kicked off really well. So the helicopters are from a fleet of 3, we currently have 6 in our fleet in 2020 itself, because people's demand for helicopter services increased during COVID-19. You see, so it has been one way or another a blessing. So I wouldn't say it was such a hard year last year, but it involved a lot of restless nights trying to figure out what we should do next.
Yeah, and a lot of change. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about the best part. As you said, it gave you a chance to plan ahead for the future.
Yeah.
Any idea? Can you tell us what those plans include? And are there any bright spots ahead that you're looking forward to? Sounds like helicopters is one of it.
Yeah, well, SAS definitely has shifted quite a bit of our business into helicopter servicing. Because we also have our own helicopters, we have also been quite actively busy with that. But that being said, it's because of COVID-19 that the fixed wing, they aren't able to fly. A lot of the times they're traveling to the islands, they're traveling overseas, but because of the restrictions, they aren't able to travel. So the fixed wing has slowed down quite a bit. But that to say is that it is still demanded, the services that we have. Moving forward, SAS, we've been working on our training school for the last 15 months, and that's finally come to its end stage where we're ready to kick off. And the demand has also been good. A lot of the people in the industry are needing to have themselves current with the regulations, current with the trainings and all that. So that part of SAS has kicked off also quite well.
I think training's going to be big worldwide because you got all the MAX pilots that have to get back in the simulators and things like that.
Right.
Do you have a lot of competition in training in Malaysia?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. SAS has always actually been a training organization, but I think a lot of the times before is that our training division was supporting our maintenance division. However, at this moment in time, we've sort of kickstart to help people in the industry. A lot of people are wanting to change their trades from probably fixed wing to rotary wing, some from rotary wing to fixed wing, some from ANC to avionics. So we help the industry in that sense at this moment in time. Competition is there, but probably not as large scale as maintenance.
Okay, great. Ida Adora Ismail, CEO of Systematic Aviation Services. Thanks for joining me in conversation.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me today.